Welcome back to another CJK video, and I took almost a month-long break from doing this. My gosh. Anyway, you guys know I like to do book reviews on this channel, but today I'm actually going to be reviewing two books. And then I'm going to compare the two at the end of this video. Alright, the first book I'm going to be reviewing is called Lord of the Flies by William Golding. And this is one of the recent books we read in school. Or this is the most recent book we've read in school. And this book is something alright, and I'm going to get into this review. So, this book takes place in the 1950s during an unspecified war. So, these British schoolboys, they get on the plane to evacuate, but then the plane crashes on an island and leaves a giant scar. And then the pilot gets killed, and the plane washes up in the sea. And this is where we meet our main character, Ralph, and he has fair hair. And then Ralph meets this overweight boy who's nicknamed Piggy, and Piggy's name is never revealed, and he's often bullied by the other boys. However, Piggy is very intelligent, and he and Ralph find a conch shell on the beach, and when Ralph blows into it, it calls the other boys to the island, and they have a meeting. We meet some of the boys, such as Wilfred, Maurice, Roger, Robert, Simon. We also meet the head of the choir boys named Jack. And Jack is a very cruel character, and he really enjoys having power, and he likes acting like a dictator. And the boys decide to do a leader election, and Jack thinks he should be leader. However, only the choir boys vote for Jack, and the rest of the boys vote for Ralph, so Ralph is chief. However, he decides that Jack should be in charge of the choir boys, and Jack decides that they should be hunters. Now, of course, Ralph says that they need to have rules to survive, to get food and that kind of stuff. He even explains that his father is a naval officer and thinks that they'll be able to get rescued. Which is kind of weird because the father doesn't know where the island is. Unfortunately, though, this little boy with a birthmark, he explains about a beast, like a large snake-like creature in the forest, and the little ones are having a miserable time and think that the beast is real. However, the big ones just, laugh it off and say that there is no beast. Eventually, Ralph says that they need to build a signal fire on the top of the mountain. So, the boys work together, they gather a bunch of wood, and they steal Piggy's glasses without asking and use the sunlight to reflect off of it in order to make the fire. However, the fire consumes almost the entire island, and then they can't find the kid with the birthmark. And it's heavily implied that the kid died in the fire. And then Jack and the hunters, they're put in charge of putting the fire, and while they're on the beach, Piggy suggests that they could do a sun dilation. However, Ralph dismisses the idea for some reason. And then Ralph is building the huts. However, the little ones don't help. They're just mucking around because the little ones, they're like 6-year-olds and they're the youngest kids, and then the big ones are around 12 years old. And the only kid who really helps Ralph is Simon, because Simon, although he normally isolates himself from the other boys, he's a really nice kid and he represents peace and goodness. Yeah, basically, Simon takes care of the little ones, unlike the other kid. The other kids just neglect they neglect the little ones. However, Simon takes care of them. He helps out Ralph, and he's even nice to Piggy. He offers him some food later in the book when the other boys don't. And then there's Roger, and he also isolates himself from the boys, but he's the exact opposite of Simon. Roger is super mean. He bullies the little ones. He enjoys seeing people suffer, and he really wants to inflict pain on other people. So Roger, he is not a good character in this book. Anyway, Ralph suddenly sees a ship in the distance, and when he goes up the mountain to check the fire, he sees that the fire is not lit, and the ship passes by the island. Then Jack and the hunters arrive with a dead pig. They killed it, and Jack is happy that he completed a hunt. However, Ralph is really mad that Jack let the fire go out. And Piggy yells at Jack. However, this only enrages Jack, and Jack literally assaults Piggy and knocks off his glasses, and one of the lenses break. So Piggy is half blind now. Like, thanks a lot, Jack. However, Jack does apologize for letting the fire go out, and the boys do enjoy a nice pig meal. And although Piggy doesn't get any meat, Jack states it's because he didn't hunt. Simon gives him his meat, although this just makes Jack mad. And since Ralph is incredibly annoyed with Jack, he goes onto the island. He says that we need to keep the fire lit or else we will die. He says that they need to have the fire lit. They also do a debate whether the beast is real or not. Like, they don't know if it's a ghost or a monster, but Simon thinks that the beast is just inside him, although Jack just brushes off the rules and goes off with his hunters. And then, that night, there's suddenly an explosion in the sky while the boys are sleeping, and a dead parachutist falls and lands on the mountain. Then, when the twins, Sam and Eric, they go up to the mountain to check on the fire, and they see the dead parachutist and think it's the beast. So they run down, tell Ralph, and then Ralph calls a meeting and tells them about the beast. I'm using air quotes when I say beast, because there is no beast in the book. And Ralph and the hunters, they think that the beast is on Castle Rock, which is like on the other side of the island. So Jack, Roger, the hunters, and Ralph, they go to Castle Rock. And when Ralph, Roger, and Jack go up, Ralph goes in front of them to check it out. And when they see the parachutist, they just run in terror. And when Jack says that they'll kill the beast, Ralph just dismisses them as boys with spears. This only makes Jack mad, and he calls a meeting even though this jerk isn't even the leader. He attempts to have the boys diselect Ralph as leader. However, it doesn't work, and Jack is really embarrassed and even cries a little bit, and he runs off to have fun because he really doesn't like the rules. Anyway, when Jack's off with his hunters, we get a very disturbing scene in the book where they go hunting and they find this mother pig with her babies, and then the boys just attack the pig with spears, and the pig runs away as they chase her. The pig goes into Simon's hideout. Yeah, Simon has his own peaceful hideout. It's supposed to represent heaven. The pig enters the hideout and collapses on the ground, and then the boys practically rape the pig to death. They literally, rape this pig, kill her. It's so brutal. It's so wrong. And then they decapitate the pig and put her head on a stick. And they sharpen the stick at both ends so they can stick it in the ground, and then the other end is for the head. And then, flies start to swarm around the pig, and that right there is the Lord of the Flies itself. And when the boys leave, Simon, he witnessed the whole thing, and he goes to the pig, and he imagines the Lord of the Flies talking to him, and basically the Lord of the Flies is taunting Simon and says that the beast just lives within the kids, and Simon is so shocked about what happened, and he passes out from shock. And then Piggy gets the idea to... Yeah. And guys, don't worry, it wasn't all the boys, it was just Jack, Roger, and the hunters, but still, it was a pretty effed up scene. Anyway, on the beach, Piggy gets the idea to build a second fire on the beach, and when they do, the hunters suddenly swarm the beach, steal some of the wood, and then Jack invites the other boys to a feast, and he asks if they want to come, and the boys agree to check it out. So, Ralph, Piggy, Sam, and Eric, and the other boys, they check out this feast, and the hunters, they got rid of their clothes, they have clay painted on them, they're dressed in leaves, they have spears. They basically became savages. And then Jack becomes the ruler, and he asks if they would want to join the tribe because, he offered them food, and all the boys, except for Ralph, Piggy, Sam, and Eric, and a few other boys, the other boys decide to join Jack's tribe, which they might regret later on, who knows. Okay, just a minute. Later, when Simon wakes up, he goes up to the mountain and he sees that the beast is just a dead parachutist. So Simon attempts to tell the others, and while the boys are dancing near the fire and just acting completely crazy, they see Simon and they think he's the beast, and the boys advance on Simon and brutally beat him to death. It's obviously a very sad scene, and then Simon's body drifts away in the water, and the water's really peaceful though. There's like glowing, and the moon is reflecting off of it, so obviously the way Simon gets killed is very gruesome, but the way he floats away is supposed to be a very peaceful scene. And then the next morning, Ralph feels so bad about Simon's death, and he really regrets it. However, Piggy says that it was an accident. However, Ralph knows that it's not. They just went savage. And then later, after Jack, for no reason, beats Wilfred with a stick, he decides to raid the camp. And so Jack, Roger, and Maurice, they raid the camp and steal Piggy's glasses, so now Piggy can't see anymore. So Jack, Piggy, and Sam and Eric, they go to Castle Rock the next morning to try to get the glasses back. Ralph demands that Jack take the glasses back, but Jack refuses, and both of them get into a big fight. And meanwhile, while Piggy tries to reason with Jack's tribe, Roger, he throws a barrel down the mountain, it hits Piggy, and then the conch breaks into thousands of pieces. That's not good, because the conch, that's the way people speak. Like, if someone has the conch, they have the right to talk, but it's not there anymore, so that's not good. And then after the boulder hits Piggy, he plummets down 40 feet, and he lands on the rock and dies. And then the wave sweeps his body away. So now we've lost both Simon and Piggy, and I'm like, what the hell? Those are my two favorite characters. And, of course, Jack is thrilled because Jack doesn't like Piggy, and Jack injures Ralph before Ralph runs away. Now, while Ralph hides, he accidentally enters Simon's hideout, and he sees the Lord of the Flies. Remember the pig head? However, now it's just a skull, and Ralph is understandably terrified, and he smashes the skull, which is just a skull now, and he takes the stick. He then goes, and then Sam and Eric are there because Jack ordered the boys to capture Sam and Eric. So Ralph asks the twins what's going on, and the twins tell him that Roger sharpened the stick at both ends. Ralph doesn't even know what that means, however, we, the readers, do. We realize that they're presumably going to decapitate Ralph and put his head on a stick. So when Roger arrives, Ralph hides, and the twins give him some meat. However, the next morning, Roger tortures the twins until they tell him and Jack where Ralph is hiding. So, the savages' first way of trying to get Ralph out of the bush is to roll a boulder down. However, that doesn't work. And then they set the bush on fire, and it sets the whole island on fire eventually. So Ralph flees, and as the boys chase him, Ralph collapses on the beach. But before the boys can kill him, they see a naval officer. Yes. And the officer explains that they saw the fire that was caused by the boys, and at first the officer jokingly asks us they're having a war or something, but then Ralph tells them that it is actually happening and 2 kids are dead. And obviously, the officer is really shocked and he doesn't understand their behavior, which is kind of ironic because this guy controls a warship, and then Ralph and the other boys start to cry because of the loss of innocence and what has happened on this island. And then the book ends with the officer looking away, touched and a little embarrassed, and the ship is waiting in the distance. Well, that's the full plot of Lord of the Flies, so I'm going to explain my thoughts and critiques. I just want to say this book was not what I expected. Basically this book was about dictatorship, leadership, descending into savagery, which is exactly what happens to the boys. They just become savages. Also, I like the way how Ralph, Piggy, Simon, and those boys were handled. Ralph tried to make him look like a leader, but however, the other boys started to look up to Jack when he started getting meat for them. And Ralph had rules, but, they were supposed to have rules in order to survive. And Ralph is supposed to represent leadership and civilization. Piggy represents intelligence. Simon represents kindness. Jack represents dictatorship. Roger represents evil. There's a lot of symbolism and representation in this book, and I really like that. I really like the way the boys were handled in this book. Also, the way they used the conch in order to talk, that was actually pretty good too. There's also a lot of irony where the boys think it's a beast, but it's really just a dead parachutist. And some other irony is the fire the boys caused, it was meant to kill Ralph. However, it actually sent for help, and the boys ended up getting rescued. Also, there are a few negatives I have about this book, though. I'm going to go right into that, because there are a lot of problems I did have with the book. My first negative is Jack. Like, what the hell was this kid thinking? Basically, Ralph, oh wait, no, I meant Jack. I get these names mixed up, my bad. Basically, Jack enjoys having power. He loves being in control over... That's why he doesn't want to leave the island. He loves having control, being bossy, and he and the other boys enjoy killing innocent pigs for fun. And Jack also has red hair, and red is supposed to represent, like, evil and power. That's actually pretty interesting. Like, it's kind of strange. At first, Jack starts up as civilized with his choir gown, and then he becomes a full-on savage. Roger, though, Roger is somehow even worse. Because Roger enjoys torturing people, he loves putting people through pain, and he kills Piggy. Like, Roger is like the only boy who kills someone, like, intentionally. Now, Simon's, it was an accident because they thought he was the beast, but Piggy's death, Roger killed him on purpose. Also, something that really angers me is that Jack and Roger never get punished in this book. Like, the book just ends with them getting rescued. However, it may be assumed that they did get some discipline. It's possible that, maybe Jack and Roger did go to jail because of what they did on the island. Probably not, because the island has no laws, but Jack and Roger deserve a fair amount of punishment for what they did. Also, they use Robert in one scene. Like, when a boar gets away, although Ralph spears it, they use Robert as a pretend pig, and they, like, hurt him with their spears. And even Ralph joins in on the fun, because Ralph goes savage a little bit, but Ralph is a lot more civilized than those piece of craps. However, this book was really good. This was a really good book. Like, there are obviously the positives such as Piggy and Simon, and the island, it's a nice, peaceful island. However, once these boys arrive and just start this war, the island burns down and animals lose their homes. It's very dark. So, overall, this was a fantastic book. Like, I'm glad we were assigned this because it teaches how you need to have rules in life. Because there were no adults on that island. The kids had to look after themselves. And it explains a lot about savagery and dictatorship. Like, Ralph was a pretty good leader. He wanted to try to keep everyone safe. Simon and Piggy were also good characters with their intelligence and kindness, taking care of the little ones. And there are the obvious negatives, such as the savages, Jack and Roger. However, those are kind of the only negatives. Those savage boys, there was nothing really wrong with this book. Not too bad for a novel in 1954. So my overall rating for Lord of the Flies is an 8.8 out of 10. Alright guys, so now I'm going to get into my second book, and I'll get to that in a moment. I gotta let my computer charge a little bit. Okay guys, so the next book I'm going to be reviewing is called Animal Farm by George Orwell. Now, this is a book we have not read in school before. This was never assigned to us. This is just a book I heard about. I decided to check it out, and I really enjoyed this one. So I'm going to get into the plot summary in this one. Okay, so this book takes place on the manor farm in England, and the animals there are miserable because they have a very drunken, alcoholic, and abusive owner named Mr. Jones, who completely neglects the animals and, starves them. So one night, the animals go into the barn where Old Major is sitting, the prize-winning boar, and we get introduced to the animals here. So we're introduced to the 3 pigs, Snowball, Napoleon, and Squealer, the 2 cart horses, Boxer and Clover, the goat named Muriel, the donkey named Benjamin. And Benjamin is the oldest animal on the farm, and he's also really cynical. There's also a white horse named Molly, and she actually likes humans because they put ribbons in her hair. There's the 3 dogs, Jessie, Bluebell, and Pincher. And there's also Mr. Jones' pet raven, Moses. Okay, so, and there's also the cows, the ducks, hens, geese, sheep, all the other animals. And Old Major, he tells the animals that they need to take a stand against humans because humans are enemies, and he explains about bad stuff that could happen because they face cruelty far too long. And he says that Boxer could be sent to the glue factory, the pigs will be slaughtered for meats, the hens' eggs will be taken away from them, the cows will be milked for human use. And then Old Major tells him of a dream he had last night about taking a stand against humans, and he teaches the animals the song Beasts of England, and they learn it really fast. And then a few days later, Old Major passes away at an old age, and then Snowball, Napoleon, and Squealer, they alter words to do the 7 commandments, which are like rules the animals have to follow, and eventually the farm gets even worse. Like, Mr. Jones loses money, he completely neglects the animals even worse. He starves them, underfeeds them, and his workers are incredibly irresponsible and don't work. So the animals strike a plan. They break into the barn house. They start eating a lot of food, but then Mr. Jones and his men, they come into the barn and start whipping the animals. However, this makes the animals super mad, and they violently attack the humans, and the humans flee the farm terrified, and even Moses flees the farm. And guys, Moses, he tries to be positive, and he tells the animals about this place called Sugar Candy Mountain, and apparently it's where animals go after they die. But anyway, after the humans flee, the animals take control of the farm and rename it Animal Farm. And then Snowball becomes the leader. And stuff starts going good around the farm. Basically, food is plentiful, there's electricity, and then the pigs are teaching the animals how to read. Some of them aren't really getting it, however, Muriel and Benjamin are understanding the words. And then Napoleon also takes care of these 9 puppies when they're born, and they're presumed to be Jessie and Bluebell's children. However, once the cows get milked, they suddenly disappear, and it turns out the pigs have been eating all the apples and drinking all the milk. And then Squealer tells the animals that the pigs need it because it's good for their health. And then Snowball gets... Actually, I'll get to that later. Well, eventually though, Molly, she's seen having ribbons on her mane and tail, and Clover asks her about it, and Molly says it's not a big deal. But then Clover sees human stuff in Molly's stall, and it turns out Molly's actually been interacting with a human. And because Molly really doesn't like the rebellion, she flees the farm to go with the human and to help pull his cart. And then Molly isn't talked about anymore because she's basically seen as a traitor. And then animals all over the countryside, they start singing Beasts of England, and the animals also burn all the human stuff in the house and on a large fire and sing it. eventually the song just drives the humans insane and they just can't stand it anymore. And these two farmers named Mr. Frederick and Mr. Pinkleton, they sympathize with Jones because, he lost his home and his property. And interesting note, Frederick and Pinkleton hate each other. They're like rivals, but they're both on Jones' side. And Jones makes an attempt to recapture the farm. However, Snowball plans the attack, and the animals and humans have a huge fight, and the animals end up winning and chase the humans off. And it becomes known as the Battle of Cowshed. And Snowball even wins a medal for that. Eventually, Snowball gets the idea to build a windmill, but Napoleon doesn't like the idea and even pees on the manual. And the day when the animals are going to vote, Napoleon suddenly summons these 9 vicious dogs. They were the puppies he raised, and they chase Snowball off the farm, and Napoleon becomes the leader. And then Napoleon says that the windmill was actually his idea, and Snowball wanted to just take the credit. Although it's a really big lie, Napoleon's just going on lying that Snowball's a traitor. He says that he's been in league with Jones ever since the Battle of Cowshed. He's been living with Mr. Frederick. And when Squealer tells the animals that Snowball is in league with Jones, Boxer is like, wait, but Snowball, he's on our side, and even at the Battle of Cowshed. But then Squealer tells him that Napoleon's always right. And then things don't go too well for the animals either. Basically, they get less food and the pigs get more food just because they're supervising them. And I forgot to mention earlier, they did this. Snowball wrote down the 7 commandments, and the commandments are whatever goes upon 2 legs is an enemy, whatever goes upon 4 legs or has wings is a friend. No animal shall wear clothes, no animal shall sleep in a bed, no animal shall drink alcohol, no animal shall kill any other animal, and all animals are equal. And earlier in the book, when Snowball was leader, the pigs made an easier version of it, and at the top they said 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. And the sheep actually do say that chant a lot in the book. They say 4 legs good, 2 legs bad to express their hatreds towards humans. But yeah, and then the pigs also go inside the house and start sleeping in there. And then one of the 7 commandments is changed to no animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets. And then Clover sees that and she asks Muriel to read it for her. And Squealer tells the animals that there's no problem and that everything is going fine. Yeah, basically, Squealer explains the confusion to the animals. Squealer is basically Napoleon's right-hand man. And then Napoleon also... The animals also work very hard. They get less food than the pigs. However, Boxer, he's the strongest horse on the farm. He's working really well, and the windmill is getting built. And then Napoleon suddenly starts trading with humans, and he's also trading with a lawyer named Mr. Whymper. And then the humans actually start to respect Animal Farm, and they shun Mr. Jones and don't respect him anymore. And eventually Mr. Jones moves away. And then another bad thing starts happening around the farm. Napoleon demands the eggs of the hens when they run out of resources. And however, when the hens revolt because they don't want to give up their eggs, they end up getting killed. And then Napoleon starts holding public executions on people who are in league with Snowball. He literally has his dogs kill the animals who support Snowball. And he even states that Snowball's been living with Mr. Pinkleton all these years. And eventually, Napoleon trades with Mr. Frederick, and Mr. Frederick is a very cruel farmer. It mentions in the book how he kills and abuses his own animals. However, then it turns out Napoleon's been cheated, and Mr. Frederick attempts to take over the farm. So the animals prepare for battle, And I forgot to mention earlier, the windmill got destroyed in a storm earlier in the book, so they had to rebuild it, and when they rebuilt it, they named it Napoleon Mill. But then, the windmill gets destroyed again during the battle, and a lot of the animals are killed. However, the animals manage to defeat the humans and chase them off. But now they once again have to rebuild the windmill, and oh my god, my dog is barking. And also, when they hold the public executions, they change one of the commandments to, no animal shall kill any other animal without cause. So this goes against the 7 commandments very wrongly. Napoleon's literally breaking the commandments. He's using it for his own benefits. This is why I think Napoleon is a great villain, but I'll get to more of him in just a moment. Okay. Sorry guys, my dog's barking. I'll be right back. And then other stuff goes on, like Napoleon now bans the song Beasts of England since the rebellion is over, and a pig named Minimus, he writes a poem dedicated to Napoleon. And then, once they win the Battle of the Windmill, Napoleon and the pigs have a party which involves alcohol, and Napoleon ends up getting drunk. I mean, he eventually recovers for this, and the pigs also have to check his food to make sure it's not poison and that kind of stuff. And then another commandment gets changed to, no animal shall drink alcohol to excess. And then one day while they're building the windmill again, Boxer collapses from the hard work and gets injured. So Benjamin and Clover, they attempt to get help. However, when they think he's going to the hospital, it turns out the van he's in is actually going to be sent to the glue farm, and they realize that Boxer is about to be killed, even though Squealer says they're just nurses who haven't changed the wagon. So the animals chase after the wagon. They attempt to get Boxer back. However, they fail, and Boxer dies a few days later. And then more windmills are built over the years. However, they are not used for electricity. They're actually used for profiting corn. And only Moses, Clover, and Benjamin remember the rebellion. And it also mentions how a lot of the animals died, like Pincher, Jessie, Bluebell, Muriel. They all passed away, sadly. And Mr. Jones also passed away. And then eventually, Clover calls the other animals out, and they see that the animals are walking on 2 legs, and Napoleon holds a whip. And then the sheep start bleeding 4 legs good, 2 legs better. And then the 7 commandments, it's just changed into one sentence, and it says, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. Eventually, all the pigs start wearing clothes, carrying whips, drinking alcohol. They act just like the humans. And then Napoleon invites Mr. Pinkleton and other humans over for a party, and they raise a toast to their new friendship, and then Napoleon renames the farm right back to the Manor Farm, which is its original name. And as the animals look on, the pigs and humans suddenly get into a huge fight because both Napoleon and Mr. Pinkleton played an ace of spades, and then the animals can't tell the difference between a human or a pig. Yeah, guys, that's the full plot of Animal Farm, and here's my thoughts and critiques on it. I just want to say this book was absolutely incredible. I just love that book. Basically, it dealt with communism, but, it was animals instead of humans. And I think Napoleon was a great villain. He alters the 7 commandments for his own needs. And it's pretty obvious that Napoleon wants all the power, and he's actually supposed to be an allegory on Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin, yeah, I think that's... And he is, really good at lying to the other animals, how Snowball is a traitor, even though Snowball really wasn't a traitor. There are, no negatives about this book, because also the fight scenes were done really well with the animals and the humans, and I thought it was really funny how the pigs were acting like humans, standing on two legs and wearing clothes. That was just really funny for some reason. Also, this book was really sad, but it was done really well. Especially since how, like, Benjamin loses hope after Boxer's death, and then... Yeah, I like the running gag whenever the Seven Commandments change and Clover has to get Muriel to read what it says, and then Squealer has to tell the other animals that it's like a misunderstanding, that they were always the rules, they just read them wrong. Seriously, the pigs, they were great villains, and also, I just want to say in the beginning, Mr. Jones, when he got kicked off the farm, he got exactly what he deserved. I mean, that guy was just so cruel. He abused the animals for far too long. Like, seeing him like get kicked off the farm is just so satisfying. Also, the other animals, they were really good characters because, like, you really feel bad for them. They wanted to create a society where animals can be happy, but the farm ends up getting worse. Like, that's what communism brings you. So overall, this book is absolutely fantastic. This is a book in 1945, but it deals with communism, but animals, and it does that concept very well. The fight scenes are magnificent. The way it's based off of the Russian Revolution, it was done really good. And Napoleon was an alright villain. Snowball was a great leader, and you can't go too wrong with this book. So my rating for Animal Farm is a solid 10 out of 10. Okay, guys, so now I'm going to compare the two books, Lord of the Flies and Animal Farm, together. So there are some similarities with these two books, like both of them involve dictatorship, society, loss of innocence. Oh yeah, both books have pigs. Let's see, like, Snowball and Ralph are a little similar. They're both former leaders, but then they get overthrown by the other leaders, Napoleon and Jack. Of course, there are the differences. The main characters in Animal Farms are obviously, well, farm animals, and the main characters in Lord of the Flies are kids. Animal Farm takes place on a farm, and then Lord of the Flies takes place on an inhabited island. And Lord of the Flies, this book mostly deals with, like, savagery and, like, loss of innocence, and Animal Farm mostly is based off of communism. But I don't think these books are, like, too different, because both Snowball and Jack, they wanted to have rules, and Jack and Napoleon, they just wanted to be leader for their own personal benefits. And they use scary threats, too, which is, you know... And then Roger and Squealer are like the right-hand mans. And guys, which book did I like better? Well, although Lord of the Flies was really good, I like Animal Farm better because I think it handles the leadership quality better. But anyway, those are my two book reviews for Animal Farm and Lord of the Flies, and I'll see you in the next book review. Bye!